I'm Marnie Hughes, and this is Missing on NewsNation. Each week, we focus on a missing persons case from across the country, taking you behind the headlines. Every missing person matters, no matter their background or past, race or circumstances. They are missed by their family, their friends, their community, and by complete strangers. It is our mission to bring these cases to light with the hope of finding answers and sometimes even offering closure. Maybe you can help us solve one of these mysteries as well. This week's case takes us to Indianapolis and a day in November in 2021 where a woman who was 24 years old at the time vanished. She got into a gray pickup truck outside of a home that she frequented often. Her name is Nakyla Williams, and 2 years later, her family is desperate to find her and understand what happened. Here is a closer look at Nakyla's case.
I missed her 25th birthday, 26th birthday. I missed 2 Christmas. I missed 2 holidays. If we cooked, Nakyla was always around. She's a family person.
Lucille Samuels misses her granddaughter Nakyla deeply.
It's heart-wrenching not knowing if she's dead or alive.
She showed NewsNation the so-called party house on Leland Avenue, where Nakyla was last seen November 9th, 2021.
It's an eerie feeling because we kicked in many abandoned houses, doors, trying to find her body, but you know, it's an ill feeling because this is supposed to be the last place where she was supposed to be at, right here.
Less than 10 minutes away, her mother's home security camera catches Nakyla getting into a gray pickup, never to be seen again.
I don't have any answers, and I'm not getting any help from the public. Somebody knows more than what they're saying.
Nakyla's family believes that somebody is a man named Beston Hoyle. Her sister says when they couldn't reach her, they went to the house. Hoyle was outside.
When I pulled up, I was like, hey, have you seen Nakyla? He was like, Nakyla? No, we ain't seen Nakyla. Like, no.
And I told him to show me on your cameras where she walked out of your home. Like I could show you on the camera, this truck right here has picked her up. They started moving her stuff out. The guy, Destin, he left out, went to back to Flint immediately. He took all his likes away from Nakyla's likes on her Facebook.
Within a couple weeks of her disappearance, police put out a notice asking to speak with Hoyle. It's unclear if they ever got in touch with him. NewsNation was also unable to reach him. We also reached out to the Indianapolis Metro Police Department about the case. Twice, they declined our request for an interview, but said the investigation is still open. Samuel says one phone call she had with a detective implied otherwise.
So then he tells me, well, to be honest, Miss Samuels, I think Nakyla's just dead. I said, is that your honest opinion? He said, yes.
IMPD says the detective did not recall that conversation. Still, Samuels continues to ask police for updates. She believes Hoyle is involved in trafficking her granddaughter for sex or drugs. And because Nakyla had a history of drug use, she worries that's why her case isn't getting attention. Samuel says Nakyla's outgoing and goofy personality changed after losing multiple friends and family to gun violence and suicide. Her father and Samuel's son was shot and killed in 2017.
I never thought I would be the one to lose a child, not by gun violence. Nakyla couldn't deal with it. She turned to other things. But Nakyla is still a human being. She's somebody's sister. She's somebody's child.
Nakyla's mother, Nakia Pope, echoed those same feelings.
Oh, she was on drugs, she's this, she that. Okay, she's still mine. And she still has a family that loves her.
In a call with Nakyla's mom, younger sister, and cousin, they all agree Hoyle knows more than he's sharing.
It's presumed that these gentlemen are known sex traffickers and sellers of drugs, illegal drugs, and that they prey on young girls.
Backing up their theory, Samuel's got a tip from a woman who claims she saw Nakyla at an Indianapolis La Quinta Inn, now the Norwood Inn and Suites. The witness described seeing Nakyla in a hotel room with a white man, commenting that she needed her hair done. Another clue, Nakyla loved to do her hair. It was her job before she disappeared. Unfortunately, Samuel said that tip didn't lead police to Nakyla. Now she has a private investigator helping her in the case.
I think it's solvable.
Gerard Easley says trafficking victims can be hard to find because pimps keep them moving from place to place.
The trafficker tries to social engineer them and give them something that was missing in their life or something that they feel is exciting. They recruit them to take them shopping, to buy trendy clothes or shoes that they are interested in. They're brainwashed.
Easley says he's keeping a close eye on places where trafficking victims hide in plain sight, like hotels and fast food restaurants. The last place Samuels heard from her granddaughter on the phone was one of those places just a couple days before she vanished.
I said, what you doing? She was at McDonald's drive-thru. And I said, who you with? She said, Granny, I'm gonna call you right back. I'm gonna call you right back. That was the last time I heard from Nakyla.
But that callback never came, leaving the family in the dark and now searching for answers and justice for Nakyla.
I could do this to somebody's family. Everybody's torn apart behind this.
They need to know of the hopelessness and the anxiety and the fear that the families have.
God's gonna make you crawl on your belly. Before you leave this earth, you're gonna pay for every young lady or boy that you have captured trying to traffic them for drugs or sex or what have you. And may God rest on your soul.
It's always so brave of these family members to speak out in hopes of coming to some conclusion in these cases. We did ask Indianapolis police if Beston Hoyle is being actively investigated, if he is a suspect or a person of interest in the case. They were not able to answer our questions in time for our story. I want to welcome in a member of the Black and Missing Foundation, the co-founder of this group that focuses on cases like Nakyla's, who aren't getting the attention so many other missing cases receive. Derica Wilson is our guest. Welcome back, and thank you for spending some time with us. I want to take folks back to that day in November of 2021 when Nakyla was last seen. I know you all have done your own investigation of sorts. There's a recent podcast on the case looking at the evidence. You're in contact with the family. What happened on that day? What do we know about her last known movements?
What we know about her last known movement is that from video surveillance from her mom's residence, she was last seen getting into this gray pickup truck. And she hasn't been seen since. And what's so sad about this case is that we completely agree with her family that she was vulnerable. She was preyed upon. And I listened to the interview, and you all do it so wonderful, like highlighting these missing cases. I listened to her grandmother saying that they're kicking the doors down, trying to find a body. And we want them to remain hopeful. We want the community members to be very vigilant because she very well could be alive, and we're hopeful that she is alive. So being able to highlight these stories and take people back to when she was last seen, even in McDonald's. Did someone happen to see her in the drive-thru? Did someone see something that just seemed out of the ordinary? We're encouraging everyone with any information, no matter how big or small they think it may be, to come forward. And I know that even in the minority community, there's a lack of trust with law enforcement. If they don't feel comfortable going to law enforcement, they can certainly go to the Black and Missing Foundation and submit the tips anonymously. We don't care who they are. We just want the information that can end this nightmare for these families.
And it is a nightmare. I mean, every single day for nearly the last 2 years for Nakyla's family. That call she made from the McDonald's, what more did she say in that conversation about who she was with, what her plans were? Were there any red flags or clues in that talk?
There was, according to her grandmother, there were no red flags or clues. You know, she was happy-go-lucky, bubbly, you know, getting her chocolate chip cookies. Her grandmother did express to us that she absolutely loved McDonald's chocolate chip cookies. So she knew that when she was in that drive-thru, that's what she was getting. And then she said, I'll call you right back. And that doesn't seem out of the norm. I mean, she's a young woman, and we hear that from, you know, our family members, our kids all the time. But, you know, sadly, she didn't know that 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 was going to be the last time she heard from her granddaughter. And, you know, when she reached out to our organization, she actually shared that she felt law enforcement wasn't doing anything. They were not doing enough. So she wanted to utilize our resources, our platform, in addition to the private investigator that they're working with. And I'm hopeful that, you know, with this collaborative effort, even our podcast, Untold Stories, you know, The Last Ride, Tracing Her Moments, we're hoping that your viewers, your listeners will listen to it. Maybe something that's said in a podcast will take them back to the day that she was last seen, and certainly coming forward with information that we can take to law enforcement and to the private investigator to find her and bring her home, or at least provide some sort of answers for the family.
Yeah. And oftentimes law enforcement are looking into cases, but they say it's a lack of resources or manpower and staffing. Do you find that more common in the cases that come to you?
Oh, absolutely. It really is common. And what we're seeing across the country now, that there is a staffing shortage, but it's also surprising too, you know, you are reaching out to law enforcement. This case has been going on for 2 years. And although they're saying that the case is still active, this is a perfect opportunity for the police department to utilize the partnership with the media to say, although it's still active, we need people out there in the community, see something, say something. But they chose not to say anything. And I think that was a missed opportunity. We know that someone knows something. We need them to come forward. And again, by law enforcement not, you know, utilizing that effort with the media partners when you all reached out, I think it really did a disservice to the family and to the community, because people want to help, but if they're not putting information out or even asking for it, it really ties the individual's hands.
I've got a question here, Derica, from someone who's watching us online. Mateo from Indiana is asking if the FBI or the U.S. Marshals have been notified. Do you have any knowledge of outside organizations being called into this case to assist and help?
At this time, we are not aware that any federal agencies have been contacted, and that is something that the jurisdiction would have to do. And sadly, with law enforcement agencies, they become very territorial. They don't want to include other agencies in the involvement. But I think at this juncture, and even based on Nakyla's age, you know, bringing in the FBI would be idea, because if she is, you know, in another state, cross lines. I mean, there was something that was mentioned that she could possibly be in Flint, Michigan, that crosses state lines, and that's, you know, a jurisdiction that the FBI can certainly assist with, as well as a reward fund. I do know with the U.S. Marshals, they do have a missing child division, and I know that she falls outside of that age range, but we work hand in hand with the U.S. Marshals with some of our cases, and we use them to reach out to police departments to try to apply that pressure, letting them know that, you know, they are a resource as well that they can lean on. So even for this police department, reaching out to the federal agencies, if they are complaining about lack of resources, reach out to the FBI, enlist their support to try to help and bring Nakyla Williams home.
Yeah, it seems like in every situation you'd want as much help as possible, especially if you're short-staffed or you've got other cases that you're working. My producer is telling me that the U.S. Marshals have been called into this case, which is great news to be able to update people about. But a lot of times families feel like they're up against a wall and they can't get information, so they hire private investigators. A private investigator has been looking into Nakyla's case. You mentioned that that lead in Michigan. What more has the PI been able to uncover in this case?
I'm not necessarily sure of all the information that the PI has been able to uncover in this case, but I do know that, you know, there was a, you know, reason to believe that she may have went to Michigan with someone, Flint, Michigan, and the person that she may have went with started unliking all of her posts. But that is much information that we know at this time.
Okay, and then some will question if Nakyla, 24 years old, left on her own. How do you address that component of many of these cases that we covered, Nakyla's included, that it's an adult and there is a chance that she willingly went somewhere and doesn't want to be found? How do you respond to that?
My response to that is we understand that Nakyla is an adult. We also can't neglect the fact that human trafficking is real. People can go on their own, as individuals, but it is out of character. It's out of the ordinary for Nakyla, as well as so many other missing, not to be in contact with their family. And so the moment that, a family realized that something is out of character, they are not hearing from her. She didn't show up for her birthday. She didn't show up for family gatherings. The intent of her going somewhere, yes, as an adult, she certainly can do that. But at this juncture, 2 years in, it seems as if something else may have occurred, and this was not something that we consider voluntary.
Right. And I tend to agree with you, Derica. I go with family instinct, right? A lot of these cases, we talk to a mom or a sister or an aunt, or in this case, a grandmother, and they say, I know my person. And they would not leave willingly. Something bad has happened. And I think that gut instinct that we have is sometimes all we have to go on. I've got another question here. This is from Stephanie McCall, who is watching online. She says, how can regular people help, especially those who aren't near the original missing location? I think social media is a big part of it. How would you answer that?
Absolutely. We encourage people to be our digital milk cartons. Remember, back in the day, there used to be missing person flyers on milk cartons that was distributed. We understand and recognize that every case is not going to make the 5 and 10 o'clock news cycle. We understand that not every case is going to make mainstream media. So social media has been a blessing for us to get information out instantly and outside of the box. Just because a person is missing from this city and state doesn't mean that they're in this city and state. I think we have a greater reach by sharing the information online. And that's what we encourage our listeners, everyone out there watching to do. And then something else that you can do as well in your respective jurisdiction, follow up with law enforcement, find out what is their reporting structure, find out if they utilize the classification runaway. Find out how long does it take for a missing persons detective to be assigned to a case. All that stuff is critical information for families. We don't ever want anyone to experience this, but I think knowledge is power. If we're able to understand, the inner workings up front, we're able to address them.
Right. It's this army of people online, sometimes hiding in the shadows, but can really have a major impact on a case. They could see something. All it takes is saying something, sharing that information with your network. I often wonder how families navigate these difficult waters in trying to find information about a missing loved one. What is your advice to families, particularly those of color, who feel like their case is being ignored? What steps should they take in, one, trying to communicate with the media, but also with police to get information? What do you tell them to do?
The first thing is always remain hopeful. And here at the Black and Missing Foundation, we're here to walk them through every step, working with law enforcement, co-founder Nakyla, who has the expertise in our in media and public relations to work with media partners, and then our communications team who's sharing our information on social media to get this information out, as well as reaching out to the partners locally and nationally. It's really important for them not to give up hope, because we have seen miracles happen, and we know that there's an uphill battle when they are reporting to law enforcement, the gatekeepers, because oftentimes their disappearance is associated with some sort of criminal activity, or they're labeling them as runaways. So it is an uphill battle at the jump of the case. But I think that we can start peeling back those layers and working with them. We want law enforcement to see us as allies, as a resource. So we understand you're short-staffed, so let us come in and help you. Let us help you close this case and end this nightmare for the families. With our media partners, help us, even the playing field for our missing individuals, because everyone matters. It doesn't matter what your race, your gender, your zip code, they all matter. And as the family so elegantly stated in this interview, she has family that loves her, and she may have had situations that made her vulnerable, but at the end of the day, Nakyla Williams is a valuable member of the community, and her family deserves the resources by law enforcement, by the media, and by the community to help find her.
Yeah, she is a person, and she is someone's most important person, and she is loved, and she is wanted home safely. I have just one final question for you, and that's around the trafficking issue. It is so prevalent. It is so scary. These people preying on vulnerable young women and men. We don't know if that was the situation with Nakyla's case. Her family certainly thinks so. But what is your message, your overarching warning about trafficking and who they're targeting and how this is able to continue to happen?
Trafficking is hidden in plain sight. It is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And what we do know from a recent study that was conducted by the Urban Institute is that traffickers actually admitted to targeting Black women and girls for two reasons. Reason number one, they said that they know that law enforcement would not look for us if we were reported missing. And then number two, that they would get less jail time than if they targeted a white woman or child. So we just need our community to be vigilant. We need the laws to be strengthened on how to prosecute these cases. And we need to give victims that safe haven. A lot of victims don't want to come forward. They may have been coerced, they may have been threatened, they're in fear. So we really need to strengthen the laws on these traffickers and the prosecution so they will feel comfortable reporting and being brought to safety.
Yeah, it is so important that we get that message and that warning out there. As always, Derica Wilson, thank you. The Black and Missing Foundation has posted a podcast about Nakyla's case. If you'd like to listen to that, you can find it on Apple Podcast. It is wonderful to partner with you and get the word out about Nakyla's case and so many others. You guys are doing incredible work. You should be proud of it, highlighting so many of these cases. Derica, thank you. And if you have any information about Nakyla Williams, her disappearance, you can contact the number on your screen, Indianapolis Metro Police. And we are always taking tips for cases that you think we should be covering. A lot of the cases that we look into come from you, so you can send us your case, newsnationnow.com/missing. You can also send us tips on cases that we've covered through our NewsNation app. Thank you. As always, I'll see you back here next week for another case. And a special thanks to the folks at the Black and Missing Foundation for participating in today's discussion.